Thank you for joining us for this showcase series. As we go through things, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into chat. We're going to be monitoring that, or raise your hands. Ask away. I'm happy to answer any questions as they come along. And if for people who are watching this in the recording, reach out with any questions by email, and we're happy to resolve those or to answer those as well. So today we're going to look at how do we go about creating participant guides quickly. And we're going to be using our tool, LeaderGuide Pro, to showcase this. But how do we go, and I should have the right screen up first, how do we go from a guidebook, from a facilitator guide that looks along these lines, right, where we've got things laid out and we're using visual cues to drive actions. How do we go from that to a participant guide that's containing the same structure, that has other items in here where we've got, we're driving actions, we're doing activities, we've got key points. How do we do that in the easiest possible manner? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we create a participant guide from a facilitator guide with truly a few mouse clicks? So my name's Pat Michaels. I'm the Chief Learning Mechanic here at Great Circle Learning. I know, a lot of the people who are attending this live, I know we've worked together, but if we haven't met, please reach out. I would love to see how we can help you do your job better. But today we're going to be covering several different things. We're going to look at how do we create from a facilitator guide a participant guide. And PG was my shortening to participant guide, and FG is my shortening of facilitator guide, just because I had limited space. But so how do we create it? After that, how do we go and to use the technical term, spruce it up? How do we make add in different items into the participant guide that may not have been in a facilitator guide? After that's all done, what about when it comes time for editing and revising? How do we make that process simpler? Show you a few other cool features, time permitting. That's why I put that in there. And we are also doing a prize drawing. I, again, stole my kids' bingo thing, so it was a little bit more showy instead of just, randomly pulling a name. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's dive in. I do like to try to keep these to about 20, 25 minutes. My guess is this one's going to probably come in around 30, just kind of with everything we're going to try to cover. But we're going to jump in and we're going to look at what does it take to go from a facilitator guide to that participant guide in just a few mouse clicks. All right, so we're going to jump over here. I've switched over into my Microsoft Word. And again, we're using our program LeaderGuide Pro to make this process simpler. So this is what we're looking at is a facilitator guide that was built out with LeaderGuide Pro. And using the cooking show method, we are doing a lot of this simpler. And actually, I need to no, I don't. You guys are seeing this all correctly, right? Everything should be coming through clearly. I don't think we should. Actually, I think I just need to. Do I need to spotlight myself? Again, like I said earlier, truly feeling like this is a Monday with the way my brain's working today. All right, but we're looking here at, at a facilitator guide. It's got all the different pieces that come up within a facilitator guide built by LeaderGuide Pro, and for information about that, we can dive into this later, or we have other videos about that, or we can always meet at a later point. But the big thing I want to point out here on this page, notice, we have a table of contents, right? We've got a structure of modules and lessons, terminal and enabling objectives, however you want to look at that. So that's all built out. And if I go through and I maneuver over to a different page, all right, we can see, we're driving actions with these specific content blocks. Right? So if I zoom in, like at this stage, the facilitator sees a specific icon. They know we're gonna be showing a slide. Here's the slide that's gonna be shown. Maybe I have some instructions to the right of that. After that, we've got a little bit of a workbook activity, and then we're saying things. So our facilitator guide's broken up into content parts. But once we've kind of flushed that out to the way we've got our facilitator guide where we need it to be, and we're ready to build out a participant book, we're going to come up into the controls section of the ribbon. So on the LeaderGuide Pro ribbon, kind of smack dab in the middle, we're going to choose controls, and we go into controls, and we're going to choose extract. And when we mark down extract, we can go from the first choice is a current guidebook to another type of guidebook. And that's what we're going to choose here. And for people who've used LeaderGuide Pro in the past, the dialog box that's going to come up here in a moment, it's very similar to when we're first starting off building a guidebook, but where it's prompting us, what's the name of our course? So we'll call this Example PG Extracts. Certain features like the course ID, if there was one tied in on the guidebook that we're pulling from, that would also be pre-populated, which is what we're seeing here. I'm going to choose a participant guide. I'm going to use a 2-column layout. That's my preferred layout for participant books. You would choose the collection, and again, collection's a series of templates. And then I'm just going to click OK. And just like before when we build out with LeaderGuide Pro, we're going to start seeing all those individual templates that are part of that collection start getting stitched together. We're going to get prompted by Word to save in just a moment, like you do normally. So up until this point, everything has been the same, whether we're creating a new guidebook or we're extracting a guidebook. Where the difference lies is in a dialog box that's going to appear in just a moment. So when we start a guidebook, we get a prompt here that normally says, do you want to bring in images, yes or no? And from there we can pull in PowerPoints or create out our shell guidebook. When we do an extract, in that whole extract process, it's already brought over our table of contents. Our whole structure has already come over. Now, what we're seeing in this list is all those different content blocks. The say block, the slide block, the activity block. This is everything that's in the existing guidebook, the one that we're building from. And so now we get to pick and choose, like I want to bring over my activity blocks, and I want to bring over my games and my key points, and let's say my objectives. Maybe I'm also going to do my PowerPoints and my question and answers, but I'm not bringing over my say block. I'm not bringing over my time or my transition, but I am going to bring over my workbook. So the more we can basically use the same content blocks consistently in one type of guidebook, when we extract over to another, we can quickly pick and choose all the different pieces that we want. And when we click Start, what ends up happening is LeaderGuide Pro starts looking through that source, the source guidebook, the one we're building from, and it starts marking up all those individual items. And that's what we're seeing here above the LeaderGuide Pro logo, where it was marking stuff, and now it's extracting it. And in a few moments, it's going to start cleaning that up. But this is definitely a hands-off mouse moment. Let LeaderGuide Pro do its thing. We don't want to be pushing too much other information into our processor. One, for speed, also that we just don't really shut down, overwhelm our processor where things slow down. This is a great place to take the dog out or get yourself some more caffeine. But in a matter of moments, it's going to go through it. It brings everything over. It starts cleaning up the other document. Corrects our list paragraphs, which we're seeing right here. And then we get a message that says action completed successfully. So when I click on done, it takes us back to the source document. What did we start from? So this was my facilitator guide. But if I come down to the Windows, into the tray at the bottom of my Windows screen, or maybe you have yours on the side. So wherever you have your tray, if you go into Word, there'll be a second document now, or an additional one. Maybe you had more than one Word document, but there'll be one more document, which is now the guidebook that we extracted. So we extracted from a facilitator guide to a participant guide. So the other document was my participant book. This doesn't just have to go extract from facilitator to participant. It could be from participant to facilitator. It could be from 2-column facilitator to 3-column facilitator. It's basically one type of guidebook to another. The biggest, the one most people use, though, is to go from a facilitator guide to a participant book. But now I have quickly, and we'll look at this, if I switch this over to print preview, I've been able to quickly bring over all of that guidebook, all those different choices, to build out the beginnings of my participant workbook. So does anyone have any questions on basically the beginnings of that process? All right. Well, then we're going to let's now look at what do we do after we've brought this over? How do we spruce this up? So let's jump back in here. So again, we're in this participant book that we brought over. And again, I'm going to be using most of the features within the LeaderGuide Pro ribbon. And so when we look at the document, things that we get, right? The table of contents, that came over. It's actually the same table of contents that was in our participant book. In our facilitator guide. The upfront material is a little bit different because there's different needs for a participant book than there are for a facilitator guide and what it's trying to achieve. But there are certain items like the why are we doing this program, which falls under the purpose. This is actually an item, and I'm going to pop back over here real quick to my facilitator guide. So in the facilitator guide, and this is if you're using our default templates, why are we doing, on the program perspective, why are we doing XYZ program? And we've kind of we've captured why it's important to the organization, why it's important to the learner. Maybe we've put in learning competencies in here. We've captured also the learning objectives. These two fields, those are extracted over into the upfront material of our participant book. Why are we doing this program? Now, one thing that I like to do, and for those who've heard my 90% rule, 90% of the time, I always do these things. So on this purpose page, one of the things I like to put in, I'll put in a notes capture block so people can see this. I've gone up into the content block section, and the way the content blocks work, underneath where our cursor is currently located, so I put my cursor in the why sample program, right? I'm in this content block here. And I'm going to now go up to the notes capture block, and I'm going to insert capture, which gives me a specific type of content block. And then I have created an autocorrect of why are we doing this type of training? Why are we excited for this type of training? And then I will go in and insert a couple lines. And so now whenever I have in my introduction activity, so in my introduction module with, say my welcome lesson, my introductory activity is generally, tell me about your name, what do you do? And then why are you excited for this program? And I've already prompted them before that for them to fill this portion out. Same thing. On the learning objectives, I'll put in the same notes capture block. Right? And I'll give a headline, something along like of what do you hope to get out of this training? And then again, add in some lines. And just so you can see where I added in those lines, I'm in the insert section of the ribbon, and it's the top button, which are these 3 gray lines. Each click gives you 2 lines. But I can quickly set this up so we've now in the participant book, they're getting why is this program happening and why it's important to the organization, why it's important to the learner, and then I'm prompting them, tell me why you're excited to be there, right? So now we can drive some better engagement, hopefully, because we get better buy-in. And then here's what you're going to be learning, and then what do you hope to get out of this learning? And that kind of ties into my conclusion, the activity I do in my summary, at the end of the program. And if you see here, right, I've put in a little workbook activity. Greet the learners as they enter the room, direct the participants to review the why are we doing this training and the learning objectives, have them complete the questions below. Right, so this is something that I would be prompting people as they came into the classroom or into the virtual training. But the idea of sprucing up the guidebooks is, where we need to put in things like, a place for them to capture notes. Right? Again, we can insert in whatever type of content blocks we needed. So in this case, I'll put in a capture notes block and maybe give them that headline of capture your notes. Again, I'm going to click on those 3 gray lines in the insert section to add those in. There's places where, like maybe in my question and answer blocks, which we can see over here, right, where in the facilitator guide, when it came over, it brought over the headline, which we were driving actions of the facilitator. We wanted them to ask this question, right? So that's why it's got a headline of ask. But in a participant book, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So what I would do, if that was my headline, I would delete that, right? And I could now, where the question was, up in the text and table formatting section, click on the first blue line button, which applies the title style, and now my question has become the headline of that specific content block. We're going to actually come back to this specific question in the cool features one, so I'm going to leave that alone. But so, to use it to, again, we'll do this down here at this ask. So maybe I'm going to take out the ask, right? I'll highlight it, click delete. Then just with my cursor where that line is, again, come up to the text and table formatting section, click that first blue line button to apply the title style. And then maybe give them a couple lines. Right, so we've asked a question, and that's what's happening in the class. But in their guidebook, as they're going along with it, here's a question, and they have now a place to capture their answer to it if they want to. Or maybe we need to put in a whole other type of content block, right? And you wanted to bring in some additional pictures into the guidebook. You could do that. We could put in a picture content block, and I could come over and get into my pictures, and I'm just going to go into wrong one. Just as an example, let's say there was a screenshot that needed to go in. I could go in and add that in specifically, so that's in the guidebook. So just because creating a guide, one type of guidebook, from a facilitator guide, creating out a participant book, you generally get about somewhere between 70 and 90%, depending on how you filled out your guidebook. Or filled out your facilitator guide. There is some still additional work that's going to be done. And there's there's some strategies behind it. But if we can get obviously the core structure into place, get all of the different specific content blocks from one type of guidebook, from our facilitator over to our participant, and then start layering in ones that are specific just to the participant book you can do that. And it's as simple as inserting in the content blocks where you need them, choosing the ones that you want, and then filling out the information as you specifically need to do so. Questions about kind of sprucing it up at all? All right. So now let's talk about editing and revising. So we're going to pop back over. We're back in this guidebook. And so we've written out, as my example, what we're going to use is we're going to say, let's say over here, the role of our participant guide in this block. Let's say this information is now different. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to delete that out. And I'm actually just going to put in a series of random Latin text, just so we can see this. All right. So our role of the participant book has changed. Right? All the text has done this. And so generally you'd go through, you'd make your revisions, textual revisions in any of the content blocks. And then what we're able to do, and I recommend having both the document that you made the revisions in, as well as the ones you want to send the updates to. So in this case, I have both my facilitator guide and participant guide open. But I'm going to come up to the controls section. I'm going to go over to special. And I'm going to scroll down into the more section, and I'm going to choose sync guidebook blocks. And we get a dialog box that's going to walk me through the process. One, we're going to choose what's my source document. Where were the changes made? So in this case, I made the changes in my participant book. So I'm going to select that out of the list on the left-hand side. I'm going to click source. And then where am I sending it to? I'm going to choose the destination. So in this case, my facilitator guide. And for this to work, you really need to have, it's got to have the same underlying structure in terms of table of contents, what are my modules and lessons, and corresponding content blocks. But I make those choices, I'll click OK. And I'm going to get another dialog box. And it's basically, there's a left-hand side and a right-hand side to this. We're actually at the moment just going to be looking on the left-hand side, which is if we need to sync information within different content blocks. So what we're able to do now is I could come through and I know what I just updated was within a key points block. So I could just mark key points. But if I had done if I made changes in all the blocks, or if I just wanted to resync everything over from one document to the other, I could mark to select all. But in this case, I'm going to just check mark on key points, and I'm going to click OK. We get a prompt here that we're going to save your facilitator guide, the destination document, under a different name, or we're going to give you a backup copy under a different name, because it's going to be easier to go to that backup copy than to try to undo what we just did. So after I clicked OK, it runs the process, and we get a dialog box letting you know it was done. So again, we're back into our source, the document we were working in. So we were in our participant book. So I would just come down to my Windows tray to pull up my facilitator guide. And just for ease, let's put this on one side and that on the other. So we were in the background section. So on the right-hand side of the screen is the participant book where we made the changes of the role of the participant book. So now if I scroll down into my facilitator guide, now notice that information that I changed in one document has now carried over to the other document. So once you've built out one type of guidebook from another type of guidebook, we can easily send revisions back and forth. Another type of revision, let's say you've updated, maybe your slide images have changed. Or in this case, when we brought over our PowerPoint slides from our facilitator guide, they were in column 2, so they were about a 4-inch image. But I wanted to, in my facilitator guide, or my participant guide, maybe I want them bigger. Right? We can come under special. I can come down and I can choose replace out of the drop down. And now we're going to get prompted, do you want to replace your images? Click yes for PowerPoint images, so I'm going to say yes there. I already had my PowerPoint open. So this is currently showing the list of PowerPoints, so I'm just going to choose it out of my list. Where do I want that image to go? I'm going to just replace what's in column 2. I've got, and this is giving me some choices about controlling my images and my pixels. Do I want to bring over just slides or just notes? But I'm going to do my slides, I'm going to replace. I'm going to do all of them, but I could do a selective range. But I'll click OK, and just double checking for that you want it to go into column 2. So I'll click OK here. Again, This will be a hands-off mouse moment, but it runs through, and now I can, quickly have a guidebook that has larger images in it versus the smaller one. So if I went from a 3-column to a 2-column in my participant book, this gives me a much bigger image. Now, do you need it? Do you not? I don't know, but that capability is there. Questions at all on editing and revising? All right, so let's jump. And I know we're at 25 minutes, so we'll kind of I'll show you two quick things, or two neat things I think that are good within LeaderGuide Pro that really help out or can help out a facilitator guide or participant guide. So we'll jump back over to this. I'm actually going to save this out. Let me close out this participant book. So I basically brought myself back to our original facilitator guide. So in a facilitator guide, right, column 1 is visual cues, or we're driving actions off those specific icons. To me, it's a non-starter. Every facilitator guide needs to have visual cues to drive actions. In a participant book, maybe you want them, maybe you don't. I'm probably 75 yes, 25 no. I can see where sometimes you may not want to have them. But what you're able to do, and I've set this up, I'm going to do it extract again. I'm going to go from a current guidebook to another type of guidebook. And I'm just going to give it a new name, Skinny Guide. So I have gone in and I've created a custom collection. And I have gone in and I've called it the Skinny Collection. And here, let me mark this as participant. So what my Skinny Collection is I've gone in and I've narrowed down column 1. I've basically said, let me go in, instead of having a 1.2 inch column 1, I want it to be ½ an inch. So in this case, I'm saving it. What we're going to end up doing, and I'm going to bring over everything just like we did before when that dialog box comes up. But instead of having a really wide column 1, we're going to have a narrow one. So I'm just going to come through, make my choices. Let's say Q&A, slides, workbook. All right, so I made my choices. I'll click Start. It's going to go do its thing. But as this is happening, you're going to notice, or actually you won't because it's in the background, or it's behind the document we're looking at, but column 1 is going to become a lot narrower. And now that I'm doing this, I should have just had one up so you could have seen it as a Skinny Collection. But I think it's good to see, this whole process doesn't take a long time. And obviously things that can, running a Teams meeting while also trying to do this cuts into your processor. When's the last time you restarted your computer? How big's the document? All of those type of things. But all told, I don't know, what was that, about a minute and a half for this to finish up. So not a long process. But let's flip back over to this is my new Skinny Guide. So, still same upfront information, but when we start looking in at the second, as we get into actual lessons, notice column 1 is now ½ an inch. So we can have smaller icons, which now means we've got more space over in column 2 and or column 3, depending on how what you chose. But one of the cool features that I really like, and it's under special. I'm going to come down and I'm going to choose, it's just above sync guidebook blocks, but it's show or hide icons. If I mark this, again, we've got 2 sides on this dialog box. At the moment, we're only going to be looking at the left-hand side. We can always talk about hiding out blocks themselves. But in what this allows me to do on the left-hand side is I could hide out specific icons for specific content blocks, or I could hide them all. So I'll just mark it for hide it all. I'm going to click OK real quick. we'll get a message that says action completed successfully. And so now, when I look at this, at the moment, we still see those icons. But as I scroll in, notice underneath the icons, there's a series of dots now. Maybe see if we can see that a little bit more. Right, we've got these series of dots. That's Word's way of showing it's a hidden item. So if we now look at this in print preview, I can now have a guidebook that doesn't have any icons on the left-hand side. Because I narrowed it down, you're almost now within Word's normal margins. Right? So you have a little bit of dead space on the left-hand side of the page, but you're still able to have full functionality of sending revisions from one document back to the other, because it's all tied off of the underlying information in column 1. But that's a really nice way that you can dial in the specific look that you need. All right, so that's cool feature number 1. And the only other one I was going to show you today. Let me scroll down. We're going to come back to that first question and answer block. So I'm going to use the moment. Here's a little bonus for those who haven't done it before. In the control section, there's a go-to button. And this allows us to jump to different places. And what I want to get to our question and answer block. So under go-to, I'm going to choose instructor-led blocks, because I know that's where it is. I can scroll down till I see the next Q&A block, and it will jump me right to that block. So why did I want to come to this specific block? All right, so in this, again, so let's say this is our participant guide, and in my sprucing up, right, I took out my ask, I've gone in, I've now set up, I made the question my headline. And so in this case, in this example, I have a question, and underneath it in the Facilitator guide, there was the answer. And I had used a specific style in the Facilitator guide. I'd set it as the style as LGP number 3, which is the 3rd level of the numbered list. But what we can now do, there's a feature within LeaderGuide Pro under Special. It's down, second choice from the bottom, called Remove Knowledge Check Answers. So the idea here is, let's say in a Facilitator guide, we've got questions as well as answers. When we extract that out to a participant book or into a handout, it brings over all the information that's in that specific content block. But if we've set up the styles on, let's say, our answers, and in my case, I've set my answer style as LGP number 3, which is LeaderGuide Pro's default answer style. With Remove Knowledge Check Answers, I can select up to 3 different styles that I can hide out. So I'm going to choose LGP number 3, and I'm going to choose to hide it. Or I could remove it, which would delete it out of the document completely. Or if it was hidden, I could choose to show it, but I'm going to choose hide. And when I click OK, it runs through the document. It looked for and we'll see action completed successfully above the LeaderGuide Pro logo, so I can close. So it ran through the entire document, looking for every place that the style I chose, in this case LGP number 3. And now, if I jump back to where that question and answer block is, so notice, again, because I have my formatting turned on, right, the paragraph marks, that the answer's still there, but it's now got those dots underneath it. So if I was to look at this in print preview, I would have, why did the chicken cross the road? And the answer is hidden. Or I could remove it, and I could, put a line in the insert 2 lines and give that as a capability as well, so people could write in their answers. But this is a very nice feature, especially if you're building out testing using our evaluation blocks, where you could mark all your answers as a specific style. Doesn't necessarily have to be LGP number 3. It could be, you could create your own answer key style, and then choose that out of the list of what you're trying to hide out. So those are just two of many cool features that LeaderGuide Pro will offer to you that once you're using LeaderGuide Pro, that will help you out. And I see the question came in. Let me see this. Is there a search and replace word feature? You replace the word ask for why. Can be done automatically throughout the document? You could do that. Within Word itself, there is, you probably just use the advanced find and replace. One of the tools, and we're going to talk about it in just a moment, is we've got a new tool that we're actually going to be giving away in the prize drawing, our Author Tech, that's got a really high-powered find feature, find and highlight, so you can go through the document and find a bunch of things. But if you, let's say you just want to find the word, you want to find, let me come back over here. You want to just find, every place the word learner was. So I just pressed Control F to pull up this navigation pane, and I could come down to advanced finds, so I could find the word learner. Right, and I could replace it with I don't know, participant. And actually, let me come up here. I just want to make sure there is style. You could go through and this, when it brought it, the way I opened it up, it had a specific, it was looking for only a style, the word learners with a specific style, so I just cleared that out. But I could now, find next, and it would find it, and I could just do a replace. And so now, what had said greet learners down here now showed greet participants. So LeaderGuide Pro gives us a whole bunch of features. Some features are great just within Word itself, and you can use those where the LeaderGuide Pro ones aren't available, or it just didn't make sense for us to try to add on to it. But so hopefully that answers your question, Nancy. All right. So at this point, obviously we're now well past our 20 or 25 minute process, but let's get into the prize drawing. So I've got everyone who signed up for today, I've put you into this thing. So I'm going to spin this out, and I will reach in and get ourselves our winner. And what we're actually going for today is our new subject matter expert tool called Author Tech. It is we've made some major upgrades to it. So one of you was going to be the lucky winner. And it looks like today, Teresa Walton, you won. So I will go in and I will, I'll send you off the information in regards to this. So with that being said, obviously my name's Pat Michaels, the Chief Learning Mechanic here at Great Circle Learning. We really want to help you build better instructor-led, virtual instructor-led. We're working on some stuff to help you with supplemental information for e-learnings down the line using LeaderGuide Pro. So we've got a lot of things in the works to make your job easier, right? We're all at a time where there's lots of information, there's lots of stuff that we're trying to get done with probably less budget, less time, less resources. So let's get you the tools that help you do your job better. We offer the showcase series. We're trying to do one or two a month. This QR code here, if you scan it, will bring you up the list of what's currently out there. We actually have, it will actually bring you to our upcoming events page, so you can see what's currently out there. And obviously right now it's showcasing today's, but that will change over. On here as well, if you click on prior events, it's an anchor link, so it's just going to take you further down the page, but you can see the previous sessions that were recorded. And if you click on the image, it will take you to that specific page, right? So this is the one from a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, right? How to create PowerPoint slides. So there's the video. If there's a user guide, that's there for you as well. There is a user guide on the whole extract process that will be part of the email that we're sending out to you, as well as it will be on this landing page. So with that being said, obviously my 25 minutes thing, I just completely blew out the window today, but I hope you guys see the benefit and how we can make your life a lot easier and you can accomplish more in less time. So with that, I want to thank you and have a wonderful day, folks.